This was great. This is a tremendous forum. Let me tell you, Luca gave the reason why we need to bring social change, and Vittorio has talked about the philosophy behind it, and the philosophy behind social innovation. My job is really simple. I've got to do it, all right? And that's basically what I do for a living. Why would people like David Cameron and others in White House, etc., use people like myself? You know, I am what they call a poacher turned gamekeeper, all right? That is where I came in. There's a famous film called Training Day with Denzel Washington, and he says, you know, to catch a wolf, you have to be a wolf. So you have to understand the behavior of chairmen and CEOs of major corporations. I retired, I'm 54 now, I'm an old man, but I retired when I was 48, and at that time, you know, in fact, I met Ben at one of my colleagues' friends' house, £35 million worth. He's got 5 of them in London, he's got 25 of those, etc. And I retired about 7 years ago, 9 houses and 7 cars, and it was just nonsense, absolute nonsense. And I did, to be honest, before that time, did what rich men do, and that was to buy my way to heaven. So from the age of 40, I thought I'll try and do what is now, frankly, very dated, philanthropy. So philanthropy, because you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that social innovation is an industry like any industry. So it used to be 100 years ago, philanthropy, the Americans do it very well, which is where you make a load of money and then you give it away to people. All right? I do that now in a small way. It's insufficient. I was speaking to my colleague Gina, is it? And, you know, my week is 4 days taking care of my daughter who hears voices. She's a schizophrenic, an adult daughter. And 3 days on a farm taking care of children who are emergency respite for highly traumatized sexual and physical traumas. But, you know, doing stuff like that is not enough, because the scale of problems we have in the world are ginormous. So we need things, instruments, which have got scalability and sustainability. They have got to bring recurring revenues to things like equalities, things like health, things like education. You need mechanisms, instruments to transfer cash from those with it to those without it. All right? And it is not going to happen naturally. We are talking about behavioral change. Come back in 100 years' time, we may get somewhere. So in the meantime, understand that there are really only 2 instruments, legislation and procurement, all right, that drive this industry. And things are moving extremely fast right now. So if we look at, for example, we are now in June, April this year, in India, they passed a law called the 2% CSR law. That means you have to donate 2% of your gross profits of medium to large corporations to CSR, corporate social responsibility. This is an enormous amount of money, enormous amount of money. The basic concept, you know, the David Cameron badge to it, but every country has a different badge to it, but it's the same thing. In Britain we call it big society. What is big society? Essentially it says that as the funds in the public sector recede, you are expecting private sector to step in to deliver those same delivery issues like health and education outcomes and social change through third sector organizations, NGOs, voluntary sector, etc. That is the basic concept, and it articulates in every single country. In Europe, we had this April a law passed on the 15th, a directive that any company over 500 staff must now report their social responsibility. Before that, it didn't matter. Just this month, are we in July? In June, yeah, just this month, a new directive came out on social impact. Things are moving very fast. So let's give you some illustrations, because I know time is going on. So, for example, in Britain, our version of it is called a Social Value Act. What it says is that you cannot get a government contract over OJEC, 150k sterling, pounds, 200,000 euros, very small level. You cannot get a large contract unless you deliver around 20% social value. If you are a construction company, you want to win a $1 billion contract to put housing from the public sector, you've got to deliver $200 million of social value. It's as simple as that. And that came into law in January 2013. That's something we wrote. Now, to do that, no corporate is going to, of course, give you a check for $200 million. So it comes to measurement. As Victoria said, it's come to measurement of things like happiness. Because the new articulation of social value is something called social impact. As the dollar is to financial value, social impact is to social value. And you've got to be able to demonstrate it, you've got to be able to measure it, because in business, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, if you can't measure it, you can't bill it. All right? It's as simple as that. So, and you've got to do it within, you've got to articulate it within the framework that corporates and wealthy people understand, like guys like that, you met. Not in the language. This is a fantastic forum, and I have really, loved hearing every single thing. And I am a person used to hearing lots of things from very senior people. On Monday, I had 120 CEOs of the largest corporations in the world at the House of Lords. A few months ago, it was Nick Clegg and Sherry Blair and Richard Branson, etc. 450 people at Guildhall. $100 billion of high net worth at Dorchester, I invited them down, and they did it, they came. You cannot say, can you do this in the image of God? Because they don't even understand the question. You've got to articulate it in a framework that they understand. And the framework they understand is something called citizenship. Because you have to understand, as I said, there's a trend. So we go, first there was philanthropy. About 20 years ago, it became corporate social responsibility, which is transactional. Means you give me your logo, I'll give you a check, don't speak to me again. To be honest, I don't really care. I'll just put the logo up there, you've got a check, that's done. That is a bit what we call last Thursday. I don't know how the translator is going to translate that, but yeah. Now, it became sustainability. So it doesn't matter, we set up a bank. One of the first jobs I did as Big Society advisor was we set up a bank called Big Society Capital. We hid 600 million from banks who are feeling guilty, etc., etc. But to articulate it, because banks have been used to saying, look, we may be very nasty, look, we may have done some terrible things, but look, the building I'm made from in Canary Wharf in London is made of green bricks. Sustainability, look how harmful I am. That no longer counts. No one, in all honesty, cares too much about sustainability. What we now talk about is social impact. Why? Because we are having people suffer now. People like the children I deal with, my daughter, like, I'm buying a whole street to try and convert it for affordable housing. This is about impact. Don't tell me that my shoes might not degrade in 1,000 years' time and a landfill that my children's children's children are going to suffer from. I have no food right now to put into my stomach. That is social impact. And the future one, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, is citizenship. So if you talk to large corporates, Barclays no longer have CSR department, they call it citizenship. British American Tobacco, Imperial Tobacco, citizenship. The mutuals like John Lewis in Britain, etc., citizenship. This is a new framework, but it's a trend. It'll be something else in 5 years' time. So how do we do the social value? So let me give you some examples. The largest city in Europe is called Birmingham. It is the largest unitary authority it's bigger than London, because London consists of lots of authorities. They are 2 billion short pounds. 2 billion short, and their budget is 3 billion. Now, they're 1 billion because they're basically the wrong end of the political spectrum. They're left wing, so that's that. And they're 1 billion short because they lost a legal case against women that went on for 10 years. And they lost it last August. What does that mean in real life? That means they have no money. The biggest city in Europe has no money, it's raining, for mental health, arts, community welfare, parks, libraries, leisure centres, anything you can think of that you would vote for, right? And of course, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to voting, that's when politicians really move fast. So they decided in Birmingham, with my help, we have set up what is going to become a framework that no company can get any contracts in Birmingham with their incredible budget as of next year, April, unless they deliver social value in the Birmingham postcode. Okay, it's as simple as that. So people, we are used to seeing corporates and rich people and, giving nice glossy brochures about how wonderful they are, how they love trees and animals and children, and that's not going to count. If you can't measure it, if we cannot see it, if we don't hear it and do it physically, they will not get the contract. And believe you me, they move when that happens. Because that is the motive of moving people. Procurement and legislation, all right? So, other stuff would be social investment bonds. I'm responsible for around $800 million of social investment bonds. What is a social investment bond? It is a financial bet on a social outcome. Now, what the hell is that? Let me explain to you. A financial bet. So, if the ones that people are used to are like prisoners. If you come out of prison, within the first 3 years, in some cities, you are likely to reoffend. If you reoffend, you are there for life. A prisoner for a local, in UK, I don't know the other countries, is generally about £88,500 for a year to keep. So you're going to cost the state £1 million. So what the financial bond says, if you set up a company, we'll give you £400,000 if you keep that guy out of prison for the next 3 years. Because the data, the big data, tells us that if they are out of prison after 3 years, they're probably there for life. They're going to stay out. The first one we're doing is social investment bond on children care, child care. 70%, I'm an adopter, I'm a fosterer, 70% of adoption fostering fails. It is a terrible thing. The children have been through things you cannot even dream about. Now, they fail because they're horrendous social problems. They have shown in some cities, every city has different, in Mexico they have a different fabric as well. They show, for example, that if children are in care after 19 weeks of entering care, in that particular city, they will be in care for life at the age of 21. A child is £44,000 to the state, that's how much they cost them in fostering, etc. So that's about £450,000 a year. Over the lifetime, not a year. So we will give you £200,000 if you keep that child out of care for 19 weeks, because you have saved the state money. So these are instruments, these are many kinds of instruments that are changing the world we live in, okay? And it's an exciting time. And they're all based on the concept of measurement. You have to be able, and Victoria, you mentioned it many times, happiness, believe it or not, is an index. There are around 1,000 social impact metrics in the world. The one that we have fallen into and gone on, we measure social impact for corporates every 10 seconds in America with the White House. Every 10 seconds next to their share price. Because that's what they understand. You see, what do the corporates understand? If you're in the financial sector, they understand something called the PE ratio, the price-to-earnings ratio. So what do we call it? We call it the social earnings ratio, because they get it. All right? They understand. Of course, it has an academic framework behind it, but it's the way it plays into their bank balance. The question for them is, how does it value, how does it value my company, my shares? I'm not going to tell you that I'm an angel, because all I cared about when I was running corporations, and I had a company on NASDAQ, one on the London stock market, and 3 Sky channels, and mobile phone companies, was what am I worth? It's what I got up for, it's what I slept for, that's all I cared about. In all honesty, and to be honest, I did not care if 5,000 children had to die from one of my companies, making products in China, because as long as I was not highlighted in the press, that's what we care about. So benchmarking is another great instrument that you have to use. You have to benchmark. So no one really believes when Apple says, gosh, I didn't know that we were making our phones in a factory in China, that they locked the doors. Do you know we know everything about our product, including how much that button costs and the logo on it, but we forgot to enter that, it's just nonsense. Or companies who say a factory in India burns down, 800 people die, and we thought it was a lost leader. We wondered why it was so cheap. They all know. It's just they don't want to be at the top of being highlighted. So benchmarking is critical. So there are many good things happening. It's early days yet. It will take a century to change the behavior of people, rich people, to corporates, but you've got to play at their level. You've got to give them instruments and articulation of issues that they understand, and they understand what they're worth. They understand things like they understand what people think about them. These people like Mittal and Hinduja, others who come to my conferences, these guys that were worth $17, $20 billion each, they want to leave a legacy. I'm not even going to question if it's pure or not. Okay? I'm not even going to pretend I'm pure. All right? What we're saying is these are the instruments that will help change behavior. We'll take the issues that you quite rightly highlighted. We will take the likeness of God. We will call it citizenship because that's what bit you understand. You understand multi-stakeholder relationship. That's what you understand. Those attributes of God, we will call them different things for you. We will call them take care of your staff, take care of happiness, take care of health and well-being, take care of your communities, your environment. We will call it whatever you like to call it, and we'll keep adding to it as time goes on. But speak in that language. All right? So I think, hopefully, I've covered most things for you. I'll just check. Forgive me. I'm not a very good note. I don't write notes, so I do, however, make something up. Okay. So, yeah. Sorry. Actually, I can't be bothered. I think we've covered it. I just wanted to get that message across that there are some great, exciting things happening, and it's a great ray of hope. Social innovation is very burgeoning right now. It's one of the most burgeoning sectors. Even at our local levels, we can do things. One of the things that got me into David Cameron was, and you look at me and you won't think this, we set up a residential ballet school. Why ballet school? Ballet schools make 50% profit. When I retired, not one of my 12 companies made 50% profit. Sky doesn't make 50% profit. Microsoft doesn't make 50% profit. They're like cash machines. But we had a mental health charity cover the 20 acres of ground. We had a children's charity do catering, and the ballet itself was a charity. These are blended models. Blended models are very, very difficult to do. Okay? Making money and giving it is actually a piece of cake. But blended models that give you recurring revenue, sustainability, and scalability are very difficult. And so we're all at it, including the rich men, including corporates, who may not understand your agenda, or our agenda, but they understand winning a contract. They understand that really clearly. Let me tell you, I'll just finish on this note, which is slightly humorous. When we brought out the children's social bond, £35 million, children's social bond, as I explained to you how it works, do you know who bid for it? Group 4. Group 4 is a company that does prison guarding. A company called Serco does traffic monitoring. A company called Amy, who is a construction company, road constructions. And they went, yeah, prisoners, road making, children care, yeah, well, it's all the same to us, okay? But it's not the same, is it? Suddenly, they were in an industry that they did not understand. And this is where the work that we do here, the people here in this room, the people who are in the third sector, the NGOs, this is suddenly where they come to the fore, where they have something that these guys want. Your expertise and knowledge and trust and provenance. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.